Welcome back to another video, and today we got our college basketball week 13 Power 40 rankings, and we're doing these every single Monday. So if you're new around here, make sure you subscribe. We're trying to hit 200 subs by the end of January, and then we are trying to hit 1,000 by the end of the year. I'm not sure if we're gonna hit the 200 by the end of the month, but we'll see. I mean, anything's possible. But if you could, it'd be greatly appreciated if you could go down there and subscribe. Not only do we do college basketball, we do college football, NFL, NBA, and MLB. So if any of that interests you, make sure you go down there, subscribe. There's times of the year we're posting 4 times a week. Right now we're posting 3 times a week, and MLB content is coming, soon with that season just around the corner. Um, but yeah, these every Monday, NBA every week. Usually college football is Tuesdays and NFL is Wednesdays. If you are curious about that sort of thing. But with that being said, let's go ahead and get right into the start of the Power 40. So starting out at number 40, it is going to be Wake Forest. And I know they lost. I do. I know they lost to Duke um, this past Saturday, but it was a very close game. They maybe should have won that game. I mean, Duke was leading for a while, um, but they fought back. They kept it pretty close with the number 2 team in the country. I give them some props there. I said coming into the week, if they could split between UNC and Duke, and that's exactly what they did. So I only moved them down one. They have a huge game at Louisville though tomorrow. That's going to be a very good test for them. They also play Pitt at home this week. Again, if they can split there, I think they're in a really good spot. Number 39 is going to be Georgia, dropping down 12 spots, and typically you only see this big of a fall when you lose twice in a week. That's just kind of how I like to do it, and that's exactly what they did. They lost at Arkansas, who was in search of their first SEC win. Georgia did give it to them, and Georgia was winning that whole game. Arkansas came back and they won, and then they got blown out by Florida. So I felt that a lot of teams deserve to be ahead of them at this point. They're 14-6 still. They still definitely have tournament hopes. They play at Alabama on Saturday. That's going to be a very tough game. If they can keep it close there, maybe I could keep them in the Power 40. But I mean, if they win, that's another story. But as of right now, they are on the verge of being knocked out, and you have some teams right outside the Power 40 that are dying to get in. Number 38 is going to be UCLA. UCLA had a pretty solid week this week. They were struggling for the past few games, or the little stretch. They played Wisconsin on Tuesday. They won that game. They also played Washington on the road. They won that game. They have a game at USC tonight. That's going to be actually a pretty tough game. I think they can win. And they also have Oregon at home. So I think if they could split those two games, they're in a good spot. But as of right now, UCLA is ranked 16th in defense, which is very solid, but 66th in offense. So that defense definitely doing a lot of the heavy lifting for the Bruins. Number 37 is going to be Creighton. With Creighton, they've actually turned it around a little. They were struggling for a little while. They were out of the Power 40 completely. Now they're back in. I didn't move them up because there was, a lot of movement ahead of them. Nobody really jumped below them. And there was teams that were behind them that jumped ahead. So it all just kind of evened out. Creighton, though, this past week, blew out DePaul, blew out Seton Hall. They play Xavier at home on Wednesday. That's actually a pretty tough game. Xavier's not a bad team. And then at Villanova Saturday. I think they should be able to win both those two games. They're top 50 in offense, top 25 in defense, 32 overall in KenPom. They're actually looking pretty solid right now. They were dealing with a lot of injuries. And, Pop Isaac's still out for the year. That's a huge loss. But they have plenty of playmakers with Kalkbrenner, Stephen Ashworth. They have a pretty solid, pretty experienced team. Number 36, going to be Oklahoma here. And I actually thought about dropping Oklahoma. They didn't really do anything wrong. I was thinking about dropping Oklahoma behind Creighton, behind UCLA, behind even Georgia and Wake Forest. But then I said, you know what? Let me relax. I'll keep them where they're at this week because this week they play at A&M and home against Vanderbilt. And we'll get to Vanderbilt, but Vanderbilt's looking very solid. So with that being said, they're going to have two very tough games this week, and their February schedule. I'm looking at it right now. Looks very tough as well. So if Oklahoma is going to lose these two games this week, then at that point I might have to drop them out of the Power 40. But they're still 15-4. They're ranked 43rd in KenPom, 29th in offense, 79th in defense. I kept them where they're at for this week, but like I said, there's a good chance that they do lose both their games this week. If they could split, that'd be great for them, but we will end up seeing what happens. West Virginia dropping down 13 spots. They were in the top 25 last week in my rankings in the AP poll. Now they fall out to here because they played two pretty lackluster Big 12 teams in Arizona State and Kansas State. Now, Arizona State actually has been ranked before this season, but right now Arizona State's 11-7. Actually, I'm not sure if they're 11-7 still. They're 11-8 actually. And then Kansas State, who had some big aspirations going into the year, but they're 8-11. So those are two not very good losses, obviously. One of them was at home. They're 13-6. Their resume is good enough to be in here still. But they play Houston on Wednesday. And with the way Houston's playing, I don't love their odds there. They also play at Cincinnati on Sunday. Cincinnati is not looking great right now, but they have been ranked for quite a while. They were actually ranked last week, I believe, in my rankings at least. West Virginia, I mean, their offense is just not going to cut it. They're ranked 111th. 19th in defense is very good, but that offense is definitely holding them back. We'll see if they can pull off the upset home against Houston on Wednesday, but I don't love their odds with the way Houston's playing right now. But you never count them out. They pulled quite a few upsets so far this year. Number 34, Texas, new team to the Power 40. The only new team I'm adding to the Power 40 this week. Texas, deservingly so. I mean, we haven't seen them in the rankings for quite some time, but they were in it for the first, few couple weeks. They're back. They're 14-6. This past week they had a pretty strong week. They beat Missouri and Texas A&M, both at home. Both, grinded out wins. It was a pretty good showing for them, and Texas is doing pretty solid. Keep in mind, earlier this month they lost to Tennessee by 4. They lost to Auburn by 5. They got blown out by Florida, but you're not gonna, with all those top tier teams in the SEC, you're not gonna keep them all close. They also got blown out by Texas A&M, but they responded. They beat them this past Saturday, and yeah, this past week they had a great week. They're 14-6. Wednesday they play at Ole Miss. That's a huge game for them, because both those teams have played a lot of close games. Kind of been losing them. Texas kind of on an upward trend. Ole Miss, we'll talk about them in a bit. But that's two very good games. If Texas goes into Ole Miss and wins, I wouldn't be surprised if they're ranked in the top 25 next week. If Ole Miss wins that game, they'll probably move up as well. I mean, these are two really good teams. Shout out to Trey Johnson. I mean, that guy is ridiculous. He's a freshman. He's averaging 19 points per game. He's been amazing for Texas. Number 33, going to be St. Mary's. Moving up 5 spots. They continue to win. And like I said, St. Mary's is one of those teams that is always going to be, a really good team. I mean, we know this. They've proven it over the years. But I said this last week. St. Mary's was new to the Power 40 last week. I said they continue to win. They're going to continue to move up. They move up 5 spots this week. They're 18-3. They just won at Washington State, which is actually a pretty solid win. I'm not sure how you say this guy's name, but Paulius Morauskas. St. Mary's had 25 points in that game. I believe no, he's not their leading scorer. Their leading scorer is another guy with a huge name, Augustus Marchialionis, something like that. Both those guys averaging 13 points per game. And with St. Mary's, they're ranked 24th in KenPom, way higher than I thought they'd be. 30th in offense, 20th in defense. Very just all-around good team. I mean, usually St. Mary's is a defense-first team, but not this year. They're pretty well-rounded. I mean, they're ahead of teams like Louisville, Baylor, Clemson, Oregon, Missouri. Um, yeah, they're ahead of some pretty big names, and I mean, they're one spot behind Mississippi State. Mississippi State, two spots behind Kentucky. St. Mary's is looking pretty good this year. Number 32 is going to be Baylor. We just mentioned Baylor because St. Mary's was ahead of them. Now, Baylor's 26, so they're not far behind. But I just kept them where they're at. They took care of business in the Big 12 this week. Baylor, getting a little worried with them. I'm also getting a little worried with Gonzaga. They did also take care of business. They only had one game this week, but they won dominant fashion against, who was it against? Portland, I think. They won by like 40, which I guess is a good sign. I don't know, though. I mean, both these teams are kind of in the same boat. Last week I was hating on both of them. Baylor's still ranked 26th in KenPom, 14th in offense, 61st in defense. Gonzaga's ranked 13th in KenPom because their offense is so good. Ranked 4th in offense, 58th in defense, though. Both these teams kind of similar things. Just the defense is holding them back. Uh, Baylor's probably more than Gonzaga's, but with Gonzaga being in a worse conference, they're going to play lesser competition. So, honestly, who do I feel better about right now? Probably Baylor. I, I don't know. I really don't know. Both these teams are kind of very similar as to how I feel about them right now. I'm just not sure. Speaking of good offenses and bad defenses, UConn is that to the most extreme I think I've ever seen. UConn all the way down now at 36th in KenPom. Not only is their defense continuing to drop in KenPom, now ranked 132 by the way. Um, the next closest team to be outside of the top 100 is West Virginia at 48. UConn is at 36. Nobody ahead of UConn is outside of the top 100 in either offense or defense. And besides West Virginia, let me see this. Okay, well, after West Virginia, there's a couple teams. You got Cincinnati, Villanova, UC Irvine. Not only is their defense continuing to drop, their offense, which was their strong suit, their offense is dropping as well. They're now ranked now. It's not bad. It's ranked ninth, which very very good offense. I'm not trying to hate or anything, but they were ranked like second in offense like 2 weeks ago. The reason UConn fell is because they lost to Xavier on the road. It also took them overtime to beat Butler at home. They won by 2 points in overtime to Butler at home. Not only that, you look at their this month for UConn. Earlier in the month, they beat Providence by 3 at home. Villanova beat them. Uh, they beat Georgetown by 8, DePaul by 13, uh, and then they lost to Creighton, and then this week happened where they almost lost to Butler and they did lose to Xavier. UConn's struggling through the Big East right now. They have a very good opportunity though on Saturday. They play at Marquette. If they can get a win there, that'll really jump them back. Resurge, I guess, some energy I have in them because they have some talent, but they're moving in the wrong direction. And it's not looking very good. I don't know how they're still ranked in the AP poll. Number 29 is going to be Clemson. They took care of business this past week. Not much to talk about here. They're ranked 27th in KenPom. They're 17-4. They're looking really strong. One of the better ACC teams this year. 28 is going to be Utah State. They also took care of business. They're looking really good. 27th in offense, 81st in defense, 40th overall in KenPom. And yeah, they're what 18-2. I mean, they're looking really strong. They play New Mexico though on Saturday, I believe. That's a huge game for the Mountain West. Probably going to decide who wins the conference in the regular season. That's a huge game. If New Mexico wins, you can expect to see them somewhere in the Power 40. If Utah State wins, you might expect them to be inside the top 25. Just a little heads up there. 27th is going to be Arizona, also moving up one. You see, a little trend. These three teams just all bumping up one. Arizona's still very high in KenPom, 17th overall, 16th in offense, 26th in defense. They're a very well-rounded team. They're led by Caleb Love, who is a very talented player, as many of you may know. He's averaging 15 points per game. He's been playing college basketball for quite some time. They have a home game against Iowa State tonight, and they're actually favored. They're favored by 2.5. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if they won. Um, if they can win that game, they're going to be ranked in the top 25 for sure next week. Maybe unless they lose at Arizona State, but I don't see that happening. That is a rivalry game, though, so you never know. That's going to be a good game, though, tonight. Iowa State at Arizona. That's a really good game, actually. Um, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Arizona won. The numbers really like them. They're at 27. 26 is going to be Michigan. I dropped them out of the top 25. I was very close to keeping them in, but they got blown out against Purdue. They lost by 27 points. That was just not a good look. I'm sorry. I wanted to keep them in. Well, I'm an Ohio State fan, so I never want them to be good. I was close to keeping them in, but I felt there was exactly 25 teams better than them. But they're still a really good team. They're still ranked extremely high in KenPom, 18th overall. They have a really good team in Dusty May's first year there. 25, maybe a hot take. I'm gonna have Maryland. They're ranked 20th in KenPom, 20th in offense, 24th in defense. And they had a really good week. I said coming into the week if they could split, it'd be a success. Not only did they split, they went on the road to Champaign, Illinois, beat Illinois by 21 points, then turned around, went to Indiana, and beat them by 1 point. That's never an easy win playing in Assembly Hall. I know Indiana's not, anything crazy. They're still a solid team. They were in the Power 40 just like 2-3 weeks ago. Now Maryland has a huge opportunity. They play Wisconsin at home on Wednesday, and then they play. Yeah, that's their only game this week. Maryland could pick up another huge win. They're 16-5 right now, by the way. It's not like they're 16-5. I feel like Maryland's being slept on. I got them in the top 25. They're looking really good. I've been high on Maryland for a while. I feel like higher than most, and I'm glad to see they're finally proving people wrong because they are winning huge games right now, and they have a chance to beat Wisconsin, which would be another huge win and jump them up a whole lot even more. 24. I have Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt is in the top 25, folks. In the top 25, and it is going to be February later this week. So Vanderbilt is going to be ranked in the top 25 in February. That is ridiculous. I never expected this to occur. Now Vanderbilt is, 44th in KenPom, so they're pretty much lower. I would assume they're lower than the entire top 25, and even teams outside of that. They're ranked 41st in offense, 64th in defense. But they're winning games, and that's really all that matters. I mean, KenPom could mean nothing if you just go out and beat every team you play. They got into the Power 40 after last week. They beat Tennessee by 1 point. This past week, they beat Kentucky by 5 points. Now, they did lose earlier in the week at Alabama. But you're playing Alabama and Kentucky. I thought they would lose both those games. They split the week. I said if they split the week, they're going to move up. And that's exactly what happened. They split the week. This next week they play, they only play one game this week at Oklahoma on Saturday. That's actually a pretty tough game. We'll see if they can continue their magic because Vanderbilt's 16-4 right now, by the way. Crazy stuff. Jason Edwards, 17 points per game. He's a really good player. 17 points per game. Vanderbilt's got a team. Crazy stuff. 23, I have Memphis. Welcome back to the top 25. They took a little bit of a hiatus, but they are back. They're 16-4, 42nd in KenPom overall. We know Memphis. We've seen them ranked for pretty much the whole year. They have a really good resume. They have a really strong non-conference resume. They took a little bit of a fall because they lost to, who was it, Temple? Or maybe someone else. I don't remember. But it looks like they have things figured out in the American. I'm not too worried about them. 22, Louisville, moving up 4. Louisville continues to take care of business in the ACC. Right now, they're looking like the second best team. in the ACC, and I can say that pretty confidently. Now, Clemson is right there; they're making a push, but Louisville's 15 and 5. I'd argue they have a better resume than Clemson. They're ranked higher in KenPom than Clemson. They're ranked higher in offense than Clemson. They're they're pretty close to Clemson. They're 25th in offense. Clemson's 27. Or sorry, they're 25th overall. Clemson's 27. They're 21st in offense. Clemson's 28. They're 47th in defense. Clemson's actually 44th. So they're pretty even, but I think at this point Louisville's resume is a little bit better. And they have a chance to get another pretty good win for their resume. I think, did I say they play Wake Forest? Um, if I didn't, they play Wake Forest tomorrow. That's a pretty big game. We'll see, how they do there. They also play Georgia Tech on the road on Saturday. I'm not too worried about that game. But yeah, Wake Forest coming to town. We'll see if they can handle the Deacons because they gave Duke a run for their money on Saturday. So we'll see. 21, I have Ole Miss. Now, I really wanted to after that Texas A&M game, I really wanted to move Ole Miss up, and I actually had them move up. But then they dropped one. They lost to who did they lose to? They lost to Missouri on the road. Not a terrible loss. Missouri was ranked in the top 25 last week. They played two top 25 teams. I said if they could split, I'd be thrilled. They did end up losing both of them, but they probably should have beat A&M. They were leading pretty much the whole game. A&M had like what 5 seconds of game time winning or leading the game. I mean, crazy stuff. Ole Miss was winning the entire game. Texas A&M had a crazy, late comeback. Well, I don't want to say crazy comeback because Texas A&M was in the game the whole time, but Ole Miss was leading literally the entire way. I mean, you could look at the win probability chart on ESPN. It's in Ole Miss' favor since tip off. It never got to Texas A&M until what was it? Until I'm trying to get the exact timestamp. Until 14 seconds left in the game. I mean, it was crazy. Crazy finish, and then Ole Miss did lose to Missouri. I will say I think Ole Miss is going to be fine. They're 15 and 5. They're ranked 10th overall in defense, 21st overall in KenPom. Actually, exactly where I have them ranked. Ole Miss will be a-okay. Taking two losses to two teams that are ranked ahead of them. Not too worried. Well, I guess Missouri was behind them at the time, but now Missouri is ahead of them. Speaking of Missouri, they got the number 20 spot. Felt like I had to put Missouri ahead of Ole Miss. Maybe Ole Miss wouldn't have fell as far if that wasn't the case, but you got to put Missouri ahead of them. I mean, Missouri literally just beat them. It was at home, but Missouri actually did lose at Texas earlier in the week, but I felt that Ole Miss win made up for it enough. They play at Mississippi State on Saturday. That's a pretty big game. Two teams inside the top 20, one of them inside of the top 15. Missouri's got a pretty tough schedule here coming up in the month of February, so we'll see if they can maintain where they're at. In terms of KenPom, 29th overall, they're 16 and 4. Good for Missouri. Didn't expect them to be here at this point. Wisconsin moving down one. They lost at Ole Miss, or not at Ole Miss. They lost at UCLA by 2. Not a terrible loss. UCLA is a solid team. They rebounded with a dominant win against Nebraska. They play at Maryland on Wednesday. That's a huge game. We touched on that already. But Wisconsin, yeah, just moving down one after that loss. They're still ranked 14th overall in KenPom. They're 16 and 4. Wisconsin's a really good team. Not much to say here. 18, I have Oregon. I do want to talk about Oregon. Every time I watch Oregon, I like them less and less. I don't know what it is. I feel like every time I watch them, I just get disappointed. Maybe I'm just hating too much. I really wanted to drop Oregon like all the way to 21. I couldn't, do that. But Oregon lost to Minnesota, who's like the worst team in the Big Ten. They play at UCLA on Thursday. I wouldn't be surprised if they lost that game. I mean, maybe I'm just a hater. I don't know though. Every time I watch them, Jamal Shelstead's been pretty solid. TJ Bamba, Nate Biddle. I don't know. I don't know. I really can't figure out this Oregon team. They're ranked 28th in KenPom. Did I already say this? I don't know. top 35 in offense, top 45 in defense. I mean, they're a very well-rounded, solid team. I'm not saying they're a bad team. They're definitely, one of the better teams in the Big Ten for sure. But like, if I had to choose some, like, maybe would I choose Wisconsin, Maryland, Michigan, like, just over who I trust more? I don't know. Because Oregon has 3 home losses. That's never a good sign. I don't know. We'll see. They haven't played Michigan State yet. I don't think they've played Wisconsin yet. Um, I mean, they got blown out by Illinois. They got pretty handled. They got handled by Purdue. I can say that. They just lost to Minnesota. I mean, I don't know. They haven't looked good against a good team. They did beat Maryland earlier in the month, which was a good win, but I don't know. I mean, their non-conference resume was very strong. They beat Alabama. They beat A&M. Um, so I guess I'll give them that, but I don't know. That was a while ago. So like, how long can we drag that out for? To be fair, 17. I have Illinois. I know they lost, but Illinois kind of lucked out with a lot of the teams around them just losing as well. I mean, Oregon lost, Wisconsin lost. Illinois lost to who did they lose to? They lost to Michigan State. No, that was they lost to Michigan State the previous week. They lost to Maryland. That was the team. Yeah, Maryland blew them out at home. Not a great look. They got a rivalry win though against Northwestern, so that was solid. This week they play at Nebraska and home against Ohio State. Ohio State loves to play teams close, so I'm sure that'll be a close game. But I think Illinois should win both those games pretty easily. They got a nice little easy stretch. After that, they play Rutgers, Minnesota, then the next week. So that should be 2 more wins. So they should have a 4 game win streak here, going into UCLA and then their rematch against Michigan State. They also play Duke at the end of February. That's really weird. Non-conference game that late in the season, but that'll be interesting. It is in Champaign. 16th, I have Texas Tech. Now, I'm aware I'm much higher on Texas Tech than a lot of people, but hear me out. I didn't want to jump them up to 16 because 16 just doesn't seem right. But you gotta understand, Illinois lost this week, Oregon lost this week, Wisconsin lost this week, Ole Miss lost this week, Missouri also lost. I know they're moving up. Missouri also lost this week. So like, a lot of the teams around them lost. Texas Tech just lucked out on the chance that they're just taking care of business. Sometimes that's all you got to do. By the way, not no shade on Texas Tech. They're ranked 11th overall in KenPom, ahead of teams like Marquette, Michigan State, Texas A&M, Kentucky. All of those teams I've ranked ahead of Texas Tech. Now Texas Tech resume isn't great, but they're 15-4. I mean, it's not a bad resume. They almost beat Iowa State. What was that, a week or two ago? 12th in offense, 27th in defense. Texas Tech is flying under the radar. They might be the most under the radar team. I mean, I'm pretty sure they just got ranked this week, which is crazy. I've had them ranked for a couple weeks now. They play at Houston Saturday. I would love nothing more for Texas Tech to go in there and win that game. Prove me right. Do I expect them to? No. I think Houston will win. But if they could keep it close, that'll be a great look for the Red Raiders. Number 15, I have St. John's. St. John's, kind of similar to Texas Tech, just lucking out by a lot of these teams ahead of them continue to lose games. St. John's just benefiting from taking care of business. And again, sometimes that's what you got to do. They did almost lose to Xavier, but they won in overtime. I'm pretty sure they came back in that game too. They were losing. Yeah, they were losing, and St. John's got back into that game. I actually remember watching the finish to that game. Yeah, that was pretty wild finish. But St. John's, Rick Pitino, this is a tournament team. They're 17-3. They're 5th overall in defense. This is a really strong team. As of right now, second best team in the Big East. Didn't expect to say that in Rick Pitino's second year. Definitely didn't expect to say they're better than UConn at this point, but I mean they are. And they're not far behind Marquette either. Really everywhere. I mean, Big East standings, in my rankings, in KenPom, they're not that far behind. We'll see what they can do when they do eventually play them. And I think that's going to be pretty soon. Yeah, next week, next Tuesday. So that's going to be a huge game. Number 14, Mississippi State, staying where they're at. I'm pretty sure they just, took care of business. If I'm not I don't remember them playing anyone this past week. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Um, yeah, they only had one game. Played South Carolina. Or oh, never mind. They lost at Tennessee. Um, but they got a win at South Carolina. I couldn't move them down. I wanted to, but was I really going to jump St. John's and Texas Tech ahead of them? I mean, like I said, you look at all these teams 17, 18, 19, 20, 21 lost. All of them lost. I couldn't continue to move St. John's and Texas Tech up. So Mississippi State got a little bit of a benefit there. They play Alabama at home on Wednesday, and then home against Missouri. So if they can split this week, they're in a really good they're in a really good spot. They are 23rd overall in KenPom. They're 16-4 right now. Mississippi State in a great spot, looking like going to be a pretty easy tournament team. Texas A&M right ahead of them. They're 15-5. They're ranked top 10 in defense, top 40 in offense. Texas A&M, I don't believe lost this week, but maybe I'm wrong. I was wrong about Mississippi State. I don't remember them losing. Yeah, so they beat Ole Miss on the road. Oh, never mind. They beat Ole Miss on the road by one, and they lost on the road to Texas by one. I think that's fair to say those cancel out. Texas is a solid team. Ole Miss is a arguably better team than Texas. I mean, I have them ranked higher. I would say they're better than Texas. So they got a good win. They got a tough loss. That's sometimes just the way it happens. But I kept them where they're at. They play Oklahoma at home this week. We'll see if they can win. I think they should win that game. Oklahoma's on the verge of dropping out of the top 40. Now we get into some weird territory. So Kentucky moving down 4 spots after their just crazy loss to Vanderbilt. Did not see that one coming. Kentucky's I don't know. They play at Tennessee tomorrow. That is a huge game because both those teams are coming off losses. We'll get to Tennessee in a bit. I'm still, worried about how far I can pick Kentucky to make it in the tournament because their defense is so bad. But they're still the 5th ranked offense, so, I mean, it was the same thing last year, but last year they lost in the first round. So I don't know. We'll see with Kentucky. We'll see how they play against Tennessee. Did I say? Yeah, it was at Tennessee, so that's definitely going to be something you're going to want to watch because those two teams have not met yet. So we'll see how those two play against each other. It's kind of good old-fashioned offense versus defense. We'll see. We'll see who comes out on top. Number 11 is going to be Kansas. I know Kansas lost, but they're moving up one. That game against Houston, both those teams looked like really good teams. I'm going to be honest. I watched the whole thing. Houston won in double overtime by 6. It was in Kansas. It was in Lawrence, but I don't know. Kansas looked so good in that game. I don't even blame. I mean, they probably should have won. They were winning by 6 with 20 seconds left. Houston made a 3. They stole the inbound. They made another 3. Got it to overtime. Got it to double overtime, and eventually just outlasted them. Kansas looks like they restored my faith with that one. They're a pretty good team. They play at Baylor though Saturday. That could be a tricky game. I wouldn't count out the Bears there, but Kansas ranks 7th right now in KenPom. I think if they can figure out some more ways to involve, because they have a lot of guys offensively, they just don't score a lot. But their defense is really good. So I don't know. If they could just maybe start hitting some shot. I mean, if they get hot in a game, they're going to be really hard to beat because they have so many guys there too. They're a deep team. They play good defense. They just struggle to score the ball sometimes. But moving in to the top 10 and kicking off the top 10, it's going to be a new team to the top 10. The only new team to the top 10 this week. It's going to be Purdue. Purdue blew out Michigan. I believe that was their only game this week. They looked really good in that game. I was praising Michigan last week just because saying how good they were. Purdue is now coming off of a pretty dominant win over Oregon. They won by 7 on the road, but they were in control for that whole thing. And now a almost 30-point win against Michigan. Now I understand. I said that I thought that was their only game. They did lose against my favorite team, Ohio State, but I think it's fair to say they rebounded. I mean, 27-point win over Michigan. I'd take that. That's more important than a 3-point loss to Ohio State, in my opinion. Now, if it was like maybe a 3-point win against Michigan at home, then I would say the Ohio State loss is more important, and they probably would have moved down. But the fact that they blew out Michigan kind of just erased that whole thing. They play Indiana. That's a huge rivalry on Friday. We'll see if they can get it done. I think they will. But you never know. You can never count out either of those teams when they're playing in the rivalry game. Number 9 is going to be Marquette. You know, Cam Jones is still he's doing his thing. He's a really good player. He's averaging 19 points, 5 rebounds, almost 7 assists, almost 2 steals. David Joplin's looking really good. Stevie Mitchell. This is a very good Marquette team. By far, maybe not by far, but they are the clear team in the Big East right now. But they play UConn at home Saturday, and I know UConn, I was hating on them, but they're never an easy win. They're 14. It's not like they're a bad team. They're 14-6. And then next week, I know this is next week, they play at St. John's. And then later in that week, they play at Creighton. So Marquette's got a very tough stretch. They also play at Butler on Tuesday. I'm kind of disregarding that. But maybe that's a trap game. Maybe they lose. You know, we see things like that in college basketball all the time. But yeah, they play in their next 4 games. They play 3 of the other 3 best teams in the Big East, not counting them. They're 17-3 though. Marquette's looking really good. They took care of business this past week. Number 8 is going to be Michigan State, and you see them moving down. They didn't lose. There was just a team behind them I felt deserved to be ahead. But Michigan State, 17-2 at this point. I mean, that is crazy. They're just rolling through the Big Ten. Have they lost in the Big Ten yet? I don't think they have. Yeah, they're the only undefeated team. Not only are they 8-0, the next closest team is 8-2. So they have, what is that? Oh, it's only a 1-game lead, but I mean, still, they're 8-0 in conference. Now I know they haven't played the greatest conference competition yet, but they did beat Illinois. Illinois is a good team. This week they play Minnesota and USC. So we'll see. They'll start to play the big dogs in the Big Ten later in February. They do play Purdue at some point in February. They also play Illinois again. They play Oregon. They play at UCLA. They play at Michigan, at Maryland. So they'll get to play everyone. Don't worry. But they're winning games. No hate at all. They're looking like the best team in the Big Ten right now. They're not ranked ahead of. It's crazy. They're the 4th highest ranked Big Ten team in KenPom, but I don't know. They're 22nd in offense, 18th in defense, 15th overall. But yeah, they are behind Wisconsin. They're behind Illinois. They're behind Purdue as well. So interesting there. But I do think Michigan State is the best team in the Big Ten at this point. Number 7, Tennessee. They hung around with Auburn. I thought Auburn, there was a chance they could blow them out. I was starting to get off the Tennessee train a little bit. But I will give them credit. They beat Mississippi State by 12 at home earlier in the week. And they went on the road to Auburn and lost by 2 points. It was a very low-scoring game. It was a very ugly game. Tennessee was right there, though. I mean, both these teams scored 31 in the second half. It was a ridiculously close game all the way through. It was back and forth. I had no clue who was going to win. Auburn did end up winning. They were at home. Tennessee has another very tough game, home against Kentucky this week, and then Saturday they play home against Florida. What a brutal stretch for Tennessee. I mean, you look at this is insane. Their January schedule consisted of at Florida, at Texas, home against Georgia, at Vanderbilt, home against Mississippi State, at Auburn, and home against Kentucky. And then they go into February, and they're only, I think, 100% win is at LSU. Now, I'm not saying they're definitely not going to lose all those games, but this week the fact They play Kentucky and Florida at home. If they can split that week, that'd be great for them. If they can win both those games, that'd be great. They do get them both at home, so that could be a chance. But this team is very good. I mean, clearly they're ranked 7. Zakai Ziegler still doing his thing. Chaz Lanier, um, Chaz Lanier. I think that's how you say it. Um, yeah, they're the number 1 defense right now in KenPom. They're 6th overall. This is a really strong team. The reason why I wanted to keep Tennessee at 6 just because they beat Mississippi State. They lost by 2 on the road against the number 1 team. But I did have to move them down. You could argue Houston should be 8. 6, 7, 8 is kind of interchangeable right now for me. But Houston did go on the road and beat Kansas. I had to reward them. I was saying how they don't have much good wins, but they're cruising through the Big 12 right now. They haven't lost in the Big 12, and the numbers are still, loving Houston. They're ranked 3rd right now, 11th in offense, 2nd in defense. Yeah, Houston is looking like a contender right now to Iowa State, who before was, clearly the best team in the Big 12. Maybe not clearly, but the favorite. Now Houston's right there. Number 5, I have Florida. They continue to win. They're 18-2. They're 2nd in offense, 15th in defense, 5th overall in KenPom. And this past week, let's see what they did. They won at South Carolina and they beat Georgia by 30 at home. I wanted, you could argue they should have moved up. I don't know. They play at Tennessee though on Saturday. That's a huge game for them. We'll see how they look there. But I can't really move them ahead of any of these teams ahead of them. Alabama's at 4. They're 17-3. Their resume is ridiculous. This past week they beat Vanderbilt, who was getting hot, and LSU. They play at Mississippi State later this week and home against Georgia. I honestly think they should win both those games, but you never know. I mean, their offense is ranked 3rd, defense down at 43, which is why they're ranked 9th right now in KenPom. But Alabama, this was how they were last year, and they made the Final Four, so I'm not too worried here. Mark Sears is looking, as expected, very good. Moving on to number 3, it's going to be Iowa State. They are ranked 4th in KenPom, 17-2. They're one of 2 teams to be top 10 in both offense and defense. They're 10th in offense, 6th in defense. This Iowa State team's legit. I don't know what to tell you. They're still, in my opinion, the favorite in the Big 12, but we'll see. They have a very tough game at Arizona tonight. We'll see if they can win that game. And then next week they play at Kansas. So Iowa State starting to get a little bit of competition. They did almost lose to Texas Tech a few weeks ago. I think that was 2 weeks ago now, at Texas Tech. So we'll see. They also did lose at West Virginia. What was that? 2 weeks ago? I don't know. But yeah, Iowa State. They have so many guys. I mean, it's ridiculous. Curtis Jones is averaging 19 a game. Keyshawn Gilbert's averaging 16 a game. Joshua Jefferson's averaging 13 a game. Tamin Lipsey, he was their best player last year. He's still really good. This Iowa State team is just loaded. TJ Otzelberger's got himself a squad. Number 2, I have Duke. Staying put. I mean, them and Auburn right now are 1A, maybe not 1A, 1B, but these are the 2 favorites, and I usually don't like picking the number 1 overall team, and I think at this point it would be Auburn. I think that's pretty clear. So Duke may very well be my national champion pick this year. Cooper Flagg's been amazing. Con Kneppel, Tyrese Proctor. This is a really good team. They have veteran guards. They have star power with Cooper Flagg. The only thing that worries me is they are very young, but them and Auburn are neck and neck there for that number 1 spot in KenPom. Duke actually has it right now. Houston is also very close. Duke's ranked 6th in offense, 3rd in defense. One of only 2 teams to be top 10 in both, and they're top 6 in both. So that's pretty crazy. But Auburn is going to be number 1 still. They've been without their best player for a while, and they continue to win. Johni Broome did play against Tennessee, and they did beat Tennessee. They won by 2 points at home. It was a very close game. And they play at Ole Miss Saturday, so you never know. They could lose that game. Not going to write it out. Ole Miss is a very good team. But Auburn at this point is going to be the number 1 team. Todd Pettifer is playing amazing. Chad Baker Mazzara, He's been there for a while. It feels like he's been really good for them. Tahad Pettiford, by the way, shout out to him. He's getting a lot of buzz right now, and deservingly so. I mean, he is that good. Auburn right now ranked second overall in KenPom, first in offense, 11th in defense. Elite team. They've been number one for quite some time, deservingly so. They only have one loss. I think their one loss, actually, surprisingly enough, is to Duke on the road. Um, so you could argue Duke should be one, but Auburn has one loss. Duke has two. Auburn plays in a tougher league. They have a better strength of schedule, strength of record. They have a better resume. So besides the head-to-head, everything goes in favor of Auburn, unless except for KenPom. But I'm not going to count that. They're just it's such a slim margin between the two. But that is going to do it for the Week 13 College Basketball Power 40 rankings. This is the time in the year where these videos start to get a little bit longer. I think we're pushing like 45 minutes. So if you made it to the end, shout out to you. Comment down below if you did, because I don't know if I could make it that far. I apologize, but it's just a lot to talk about. I mean, we're getting into February. Next video it'll be February. We're getting really close to March. Only a couple weeks away. And you know what that means. We're going to have every single conference. We're going to have a conference tournament bracket prediction. That was a huge success last year. We're bringing it back this year. So, if you want to stay tuned for that. Make sure you subscribe. We're trying to hit 200 by the end of the month. We're trying to hit 1,000 by the end of the year. Like this video if you enjoyed. Comment down below what you agree, what you disagree. Links in the description, as always. X, Twitch, TikTok, Discord. But with all that being said, I'm gonna get out of here. It's been quite the video. Yeah, thank you so much for watching. If you did make it to the end, and yeah, I will see you guys. I don't think we're gonna have a college football or NFL video this week, but we will have an NBA video. So I'll see you guys sometime later this week with another episode of NBA Playoff Watch. Thank you for watching.